These are the original front self-brake jigs, so these have been in use since 1959.
No!
For many years, fans of the hit car restoration show Wheeler Dealers believed that Mike Brewer and Ed China were not just co-hosts but also great friends who shared the same passion for fixing old vehicles and bringing them back to life. Viewers around the world admired their teamwork, because Mike had a strong talent for buying the right car at the right price, while Ed impressed everyone with his calm, detailed, and creative mechanical skills. Together, they made a show that felt real, educational, and fun. However, when Ed suddenly announced that he was leaving the show in 2017, everything changed. Fans were shocked, and many believed there had to be more behind the scenes than what was being said publicly. Over time, rumors grew into a storm of accusations on social media, and soon the story became that Mike and Ed had a serious feud. For years, neither of them talked much about what really happened. But now, Mike Brewer is finally opening up, and what he has to say suggests that the split was far more painful, emotional, and complicated than viewers ever imagined. His new statements reveal feelings of betrayal, frustration, and disappointment, things he admits he kept inside for too long. When he speaks about it now, it becomes clear that this feud was not just about a TV show or production changes. Instead, it was a deep break in a partnership that had built one of the most popular car programs in the world. And as Mike reveals his side of the story, it becomes easy to understand why he believes the public never truly knew the full truth. According to Mike Brewer, the trouble began long before Ed China decided to leave the show, and the biggest issue was the direction the production company wanted to take. When Wheeler Dealers moved operations to the United States, costs increased, and the new producers wanted shorter repair segments and more scripted elements. Mike says he tried to keep the original style of the show, where Ed's long, carefully explained repairs were the heart of each episode. But the producers argued that modern audiences wanted faster pacing, fewer details, and more entertainment. Mike now admits he felt stuck in the middle, trying to protect the show's identity while also trying to keep the production running smoothly. On the other side, Ed believed that cutting his workshops down would weaken the educational value of the program. He was proud of showing people how real car repairs worked, step by step, and he did not want to turn the show into something that felt fake or rushed. As these disagreements grew, tension built behind the scenes. Mike says he felt frustrated because viewers assumed he supported the new creative direction, even though he was quietly fighting to keep Ed's role intact. Ed, meanwhile, believed that the changes were unavoidable because of financial pressure. When he eventually decided to leave, Mike was devastated, not just because the partnership was ending, but because he knew fans would blame him, even though he had no control over the decisions being made by the network. Mike says this was the beginning of the painful backlash that would follow him for years. After Ed's exit announcement, social media exploded, and most of the anger was directed at Mike Brewer. Many fans believed Ed's departure had something to do with Mike personally. Some started attacking Mike online, accusing him of pushing Ed out, betraying him, or siding with the producers. The reaction became so intense that Mike and his family received threats, something he now says deeply affected him and left long-lasting emotional scars. Mike reveals that during this period, he hoped Ed would step forward and clear the air by telling fans that Mike was not the reason behind his exit. But Ed stayed mostly quiet, releasing only a short explanation about creative differences and budget cuts. To Mike, this silence felt like abandonment. He says he expected support from someone he once considered a close friend. Instead, he felt left alone to face the anger of millions of disappointed fans. Mike explains that one of the hardest moments was watching people call him a sellout and accuse him of destroying the show's legacy. According to Mike, all he ever wanted was to continue giving fans the car content they loved. He says the hatred he received became so overwhelming that he considered quitting television completely. Looking back now, he believes that the situation could have been prevented if there had been clearer communication between the two of them during the crisis. This period of silence, misunderstanding, and fear is, according to Mike, the beginning of the deep emotional split between him and Ed China, one that would take years to heal, and perhaps never fully resolve. Mike also talks about how painful it was to see his relationship with Ed fall apart after so many years of working side by side. He describes their friendship as real, not something created for television. He says they shared many good moments, laughs, long workdays, and road trips that fans never saw. But when the feud exploded online, Mike felt as if all of those years were suddenly forgotten. He explains that he reached out to Ed several times, hoping to talk things through privately. But the conversations never led to a solution. Mike says that one of the biggest reasons the friendship collapsed was because both of them were hurting, but neither felt truly understood by the other. Ed felt that his creative integrity was being threatened, while Mike felt that he had been unfairly blamed for things he had no power over. Each man believed he was fighting for the soul of the show in his own way. Mike says that what still hurts is that Ed seemed to think Mike supported the new direction, even though Mike insists he pushed back behind the scenes. According to Mike, he fought hard to protect the longer, more detailed workshop sequences that fans loved. But the network chose otherwise. He wishes Ed had known how many arguments he had with the producers about the changes. Today, when Mike looks back, he feels sadness not only for the breakup but also for the missed opportunity to communicate better. He believes that if both of them had spoken openly and honestly earlier, the partnership might have survived. Instead, silence grew into misunderstanding, and misunderstanding turned into resentment. And although Mike is now speaking publicly about the feud, he admits that part of him still misses the friendship they once shared. Over time, as Wheeler Dealers continued with new presenters and new episodes, Mike realized that the feud with Ed could not remain unspoken forever. He says he reached a point where he needed to explain his side so fans would understand the emotional toll the situation took on him. When he finally started opening up in interviews and public events, he explained that he had no desire to replace Ed and no intention of pushing him out of the show. Instead, he simply wanted the show to survive very difficult production changes. Mike points out that Wheeler Dealers was more than just a TV program, it was something he cared about deeply, something he had built from the ground up. Losing Ed, and then being blamed for it, felt like losing a friend and being punished for it at the same time. He also says that when Ed finally responded publicly, he was surprised by how different their views of the situation were. Mike believes that both of them thought they were doing the right thing, but they were looking at the issue from completely different angles. As Mike Brewer continued to speak openly about the breaking point with Ed China, he also revealed the emotional weight of carrying the public's expectations for so long. He explains that many fans believed the show ran smoothly behind the scenes, but the truth was far more stressful. When filming in the US, production demands became more intense, and both hosts were under pressure to deliver perfect episodes in shorter times. Mike, who had to negotiate deals, find cars, coordinate schedules, and manage production expectations, says he felt stretched thinner than ever. At the same time, he watched Ed struggle with the new environment, longer travel times, and increased workload. Mike says he tried to support Ed as much as possible, but he admits there were moments when they didn't see eye to eye. He now realizes that both of them were overwhelmed and that the pressure from the network only made misunderstandings grow. Mike reflects that in any partnership, communication is the key to survival, but in their case, silence and assumptions became stronger than truth. Today, he looks back at that time and recognizes that neither he nor Ed was prepared for how much the change in location and production style would affect them. Mike believes that if they had spoken honestly about their fears and frustrations earlier, much of the tension could have been reduced. But in the moment, both men were trying so hard to keep the show alive that they ignored the emotional and mental strain. He says that this experience taught him a valuable lesson: success can sometimes create hidden cracks, and if those cracks are not repaired quickly, they can eventually break even the strongest team apart. Another part of the story that Mike Brewer wants fans to understand is how personal the attacks felt during the height of the feud. He says that while criticism is normal for public figures, what happened after Ed left was far beyond normal negativity. People who had watched the show for over a decade suddenly turned against him, believing he had betrayed Ed or forced him out. Mike remembers waking up every day to hundreds of hateful messages and threats. At one point, he says his family feared leaving their home because the situation had become so extreme. Mike admits that he felt broken, especially because much of the anger was based on assumptions rather than facts. He explains that when two people separate professionally, the public often wants a simple explanation, something black and white. But the truth behind Wheeler Dealers was full of gray areas, business decisions, creative disagreements, and personal stress that fans had no way of seeing. Mike says the most painful part was feeling that all of his years of hard work, passion, and love for the show suddenly meant nothing to the people he hoped to inspire. He recalls moments when he questioned whether he should fight back against the lies or simply disappear from the public eye. But in the end, Mike chose to stay because he believed that walking away would only give those negative voices more power. Instead, he decided to rebuild himself, focusing on his family, his love for cars, and the fans who continued supporting him. Today, when Mike talks about that dark time, he does so not with anger, but with relief that he survived it. He hopes others can learn from his story about the emotional cost of public judgment. Mike also reveals that the feud changed the way he views friendship, trust, and teamwork. He explains that before the split, he considered Ed more than just a co-host. He saw him as someone he could rely on, someone who understood his passion for cars and his dedication to the show. But after the fallout, Mike says he struggled to trust people as easily as before. He felt cautious, guarded, and unsure who he could open up to. He says that while fame brings success, it also brings misunderstandings, jealousy, and pressure that can make relationships fragile. Mike admits that the split forced him to rethink how he communicates with colleagues and friends. Now, he makes an effort to be clearer, more honest, and more open about his feelings, because he knows that silence can turn small issues into big problems. He also learned the importance of setting boundaries, recognizing when stress is becoming too heavy, and asking for help before things reach a breaking point. Despite everything, Mike says he still wishes Ed the best and respects the legacy they built together. He acknowledges that both of them made mistakes during the fallout, but he believes that growth comes from recognizing those mistakes rather than hiding from them. In many ways, the feud helped Mike become more self-aware, more emotionally strong, and more appreciative of the people who stand by him. He knows that fans will always have opinions, but what matters most is knowing that he stayed true to his love for cars and his desire to entertain and educate viewers. For Mike, the feud taught him that endings, even painful ones, can lead to new beginnings and deeper understanding. Looking forward, Mike Brewer says he hopes the future will bring more peace, understanding, and perhaps even closure with Ed China someday. He acknowledges that their partnership was unique, one that brought joy to millions of viewers around the world. While the show has moved on and Mike continues working with new mechanics and new formats, part of him still feels connected to the early days when he and Ed worked as a team with a shared dream. He says he understands why fans continue to hope for a reunion, and while he cannot promise anything, he does not reject the idea completely. Mike believes that time can change perspectives and soften old wounds. He also knows that both he and Ed have grown as individuals since the split. If a reunion were ever to happen, Mike says it would need to be built on honesty, respect, and a shared desire to move forward rather than reopen old arguments. He also believes that such a reunion should be motivated not by pressure from fans or producers, but by a genuine desire from both men to reconnect. For now, Mike focuses on the present, new shows, new car builds, and new opportunities to share his passion with audiences. But he also carries the lessons of the past with him, the importance of clear communication, the value of true friendship, and the reality that even the strongest partnerships can be damaged by miscommunication and outside pressure. Mike hopes that by sharing his side of the story, fans will see that he is not the villain many once believed him to be. Instead, he is a man who experienced pain, loss, and misunderstanding, but also healing, growth, and renewed purpose. In the end, Mike's greatest wish is that viewers remember the good that he and Ed created together, rather than the conflict that tore them apart.